respected chairperson, Dr. Sachidananda Joshi ji, Dr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, my co-panelist, respected Vice-Chancellor, who's very dynamic, and I congratulate this university for completing a centenary and all the great better going. We are not competitors, we are collaborators. Professor Sri Prakash Singh ji, Professor Dr. Swadesh Singh ji, and ladies and gentlemen, faculty, students, I'm very happy to be here this morning to especially speak on the topic of cultural nationalism and maybe give it a more all India perspective, because I hail from one of the marginalized regions of the country, that is the South, and from the state of Tamil Nadu, even Andhra Pradesh I can claim, and also Maharashtra. So here my idea when we are talking, the topic of the entire seminar is extremely important, because revisiting the ideas of India from Swaraj to New India will bring in new Indic narratives. And I think it is very important for both DU and JNU, one of the country's most premier universities, to debate this narrative and bring in new ideas, both at the level of faculty and students. I would begin with saying reducing India to a civic nation bound only by the Constitution disregards its history, our ancient heritage, culture, and civilization. I would place India as a civilization state. Please understand that there are only two civilization states in the world that has had tradition with modernity, realm with region, change with continuity, and those two states are India and China. And we have entered the fourth industrial revolution. So this means there's something unique about the civilization. And this is what I want to state, that it is not just a view from one part of the country. There have been writings since immemorial where you have this concept continuously being narrated. And it is very important for us that in a seminar like this, we revisit them. If we see, it predates the freedom struggle, it predates the arrival of those who eventually made India their homeland. Celebrating history beyond religion is very important. Challenge of a distorted history, distorted both, because history is his story. I think the her story also has to come. And the overturning of E.H. Carr's dictum, facts are sacred, interpretations can vary. Unfortunately, independent India, and to a certain extent, the university I belong to, overturned this dictum. Interpretations are sacred, facts can vary. And this is very dangerous. And that is why in a civilization that preached Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti, that truth may be one, but there are different parts to it, is a basic essence of celebration of diversity, dissent, difference, as well as democracy. So if we see what has been the narrative, why are we today trying to re-emphasize a point? It's because we are made to imagine our history with self-loathing, self-hatred, and a land of the conquered and the defeated by invaders. One period is excessively glorified. And I, who come from the South, feel even worse. The longest ruling dynasty in India have been the Cholas, who ruled this country for 2000 years. Any mention, any road in the name of any of the great kings of the Cholas? Not one in Delhi. So I really feel feeling that there is a huge bias, agenda setting, as well as gatekeeping. And it is extremely important that we revisit these ideas and look into the gaps. As most of you know, India is not a post-independent idea of a nation. The Rig Veda defined the geographical existence of Bharatavarsha as well as the Sapta Sindhu, a land encompassing 7 principal rivers. The Vishnu Purana deciphers the geographical location of the Bharatvarsha. Composed in 2nd century BC, it says the land that lies north of the ocean and south of the snowy mountains is called Bharata. And there dwell the progenies of Bharata. The word Rashtra is not something that has come in today. It is something that was used in the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, and the Atharva Veda. Rashtra as a people living in a definite territory who accept the preeminence of knowledge and respect the person learning as well equipped and protecting their country from foreign invasion or internal or national or natural calamities. So Rashtra is not only a merely geopolitical concept, it is also a civilizational concept. It is a kind of thought which mystically keeps a patriot in a frame of mind to transcend all material and immediate interests and protect the motherland from all odds and calamities, aggression and evils. The love for the country is not the same as nation and self-determination, sovereignty, or even structuring a composite culture. Rashtra Bhakti is a subconscious feeling of being an Indian or a person belonging to this great civilization. Unlike the Abrahamic religions, Hinduism is not a proselytizing or a structured religion of one book and one God. We are a process. It's a way of life. So when we compare, you're comparing two unequals. As most of us know, Robert Frickenberg, the famous American historian, called the Indian national movement also as a Hindu revivalist and modernist movement. He quoted Bankim Chandra Chatterjee with his Vande Mataram, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, as well as Sri Aurobindo and Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who redefined Hinduism in modern terms. So cultural civilization is only a civilizational perception, a sense of belonging and anchoring in a specific cultural and civilizational milieu. And this is very important because when China does it, it's very secular. When India does it, it's communal. This type of argumentation doesn't work in academics. And I would like to here go to some of the thinkers whom I thought were less stressed. I would start with Maharashtra and go downwards. Most of you have heard the name of Bal Gangadhar Tilak and his book, The Gita Rahasya. A few ideas on it. Tilak was the first to say, Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. He infused the spirit of political assertiveness and patriotism, both of which is extremely relevant today. And among the people of the country through aggressive nationalist policies. To inject the spirit of nationalism and awareness among the people, he started the Ganesh festival and the Shivaji Mahotsav, instrumental in bringing people together without caste or creed. And I would call him the first mass leader before Mahatma Gandhi. Many people think Mahatma Gandhi is a disciple of Gopala Krishna Gokhale. I would rather say he's a disciple of Lokmanya Tilak. Why? Because he used similar symbols to bring in a mass movement like Satyagraha and Ram Rajya. So I would see Mahatma Gandhi from the Tilak perspective. And if we look at Tilak, both Tilak and Gandhi were greatly influenced by the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, they saw it as an instrument of karma yoga rather than just bhakti yoga. So I would recommend all young political scientists who are looking for narratives on cultural nationalism to read this book of Lokmanya Tilak on the Gita Rahasya, because here he draws the threefold distinction made in the Gita as well as in other Hindu texts, that between three different ways of moksha, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga, the paths of knowledge, devotion, and action. Since all the three elements are clearly present and endorsed in the Gita, Tilak cannot dismiss any of them, but rather he has to configure the relation between them, such as renunciation is foreclosed as a conclusion. He is not alone in the endeavor. The latter 19th and 20th century was replete with efforts by nationalists seeking by different means to arrive at a similar conclusion. Most of us know Bankim Chandra Chatterjee did so by equating bhakti with karma yoga. Karma means the performance of only those acts that comprise our duty. And duty in turn comprises only those acts that are dedicated to the Almighty. Act in the belief and that all acts are his. So if you see this whole thing, he used the Gita to infuse patriotism, that to aggressive patriotism among the people, not only in Maharashtra, but India. But unfortunately, we had an interpretation calling these great leaders extremists. They were not extremists, they were revolutionaries. I think it is very wrong to use such epithets for people. The next I would like to bring in is the idea of Gopalakrishna Gokhale. Yesterday only I was talking about dynastic politics. I said the model of paradigm that you can think of is his starting of the servants of India society. I don't know if most of you know, Gopal Krishna Gokhale was instrumental. He said politics should be a service and not a profession. And I think it is this aspect that we have to bring in. And you as young scholars, please start using these narratives which are available in the writings of many of the Indian freedom fighters. Unfortunately, the school which began in my university also interpreted only one family as the history of India, modern India. We have forgotten all these great nationalists who existed. I'm going to the more marginalized areas, and that is to Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. You had Subramanya Bharati, known as Mahakavi Bharati to Tamil speakers for his outstanding contributions to nationalism and to Tamil literature. He died on 11th September 1921 at a very young age. A passionate freedom fighter, social revolutionary, mystic and visionary, who was active during the late period of the British rule. He spent much of his all too brief life exiled from British India in neighboring Pondicherry, just like Sri Aurobindo. He died suddenly in 1921. He was just 38 years old. He had little opportunity to provide for his legacy, literature or otherwise. And if we look at his writings, please understand that he talked about the intangible cultural heritage of India and the unity of this culture. The writings destroy all ambiguity. He clearly said that clarity of mind is very important, and he thought that all languages and literatures of India have a single origin. And this, if you see, Bharati was a genius. He was also ahead of his time. He also spoke about women's liberation. Many people believe that feminist or women's rights movements began only with Marx and ended there. I'll tell you, the first feminist is Draupadi and Sita. Who could be more greater feminist than what Draupadi asked her husbands in the Mahabharata? Or even Sita as the first single mother. See, this whole concepts are not an invention of the West. So one thing, it's very important for us to go into this. And the other is Subramanya Shiva. I'm just mentioning the names because of paucity of time. And the two Telugu writers called Duggirala Gopalakrishna, who said that a nation is not its sand or mud, but its people. And Kandukuri Veerashalingam, who was also like Ishwara Chandra Vidyasagar, a great reformer from the south. Now, finally, I would like to end with what I call our nationalism, cultural nationalism is as old as our civilization. I would like to quote from the Sangam literature and from the Cholas in the south, quoting the great writer Ananda K. Kumaraswamy. He said, the highlight of the Indian civilization is the dance of Lord Shiva. In its ancient form, the ante-Sheshan worshipped Shiva and prayed above all things for the boon once more to behold the mystic dance. Shiva promised that he should behold the dance again, and in the sacred Tillai, the center of the universe. The dance of Shiva in Chidambaram, which is the only temple that has the Nataraja avatar of Lord Shiva, or Tillai forms as we call it, the motif of the South Indian copper images of Sri Nataraja, the Lord of Dance. These images vary amongst themselves in minor details, but all express one fundamental conception. Our Lord is the dancer who, like the heat latent in firewood, diffuses his power in mind and matter and makes them dance in their turn. The dance in itself represents the 5 activities, what we call the Pancha Kriya. And I would tell most of you that you can make several theories from this Pancha Kriya. What first is the concept of Srishti, overlooking creation, evolution. Second is the concept of Sthiti, preservation and support. Then Samhara, destruction and evolution. Look at Ukraine. You can have this theory of destruction as well as evolution. And the Tribhuvat, veiling embodiment, illusion, and also giving rest. And Anugraha, release, salvation, and grace. These separately considered are the activities of the deities of Brahma, Vishnu, Ridra, Maheshwara, and Sadashiva. The cosmic activity is the central motif of the dance, Ummai Vilakam. Verse 36 tells us, this is from the Sangam literature, which is much older than many of the things, which was in Madurai, which was thought to be the Kumari Kandam, which we thought has got separated into Australia and other parts. So creation arises from the drum. Protection proceeds from the hand of hope, and fire proceeds destruction. The foot held afloat gives release. So if you see very clearly, it is here that we look upon this legendary argument about Lord Shiva's dance as highlighted of the Indian civilizational trait of the Cholas. If most of you saw, the Cholas occupied the Indo-Pacific called the Sri Vijaya and the Suvarna Bhumi. They defeated the Chinese, and it is the image of Lord Shiva that was their ascendant or their ruling symbol. And we don't even know much about this civilization. I think most of you in North India, it must be news when. So if we see from all this, can India become a norm builder? The next question and the last question I pose before you is, when you are a civilizational state, it is expected that we build narratives which can become norms in international relations, in all aspects of life. If you've seen the Cholas conquered, they did not do it by genocide, rape, or loot. It was more by culture, trade, and commerce. So if you see, you have an alternative paradigm where you have this. So finally, I would only like to end saying that when we talk of cultural nationalism, it should help us to define certain very important identifying characteristics that we need to be a norm builder. A shared value system which includes the acceptance of international norms. Yes, we don't believe in loot, genocide, or rape. We believe in trade and commerce and culture. 2, the existence of institutional mechanisms for the resolution of conflicts. Most of you know our democracy is much older. The British did not give us democratic values. Then Burma, Myanmar, Pakistan, all countries ruled by British colonial power should have been democracies. India is a democracy because it has a political culture. A culture that can choose from 3,000 crores of gods. What more diversity would you require? Diversity is our strength, and let us celebrate it. The more diffuse nature of political power in liberal democracies, making it difficult to sustain military conflicts. Please understand, we are the only country that has sustained our oasis of democracy in the third world. Most countries have given up democratic values in our region, and even in what we called earlier the third world or the developing world. So here, basically, I would say India's contribution to multiculturalism and cultural pluralism is extraordinarily important. And it is here that we have also the world-centric paradigm against the state-centric paradigm of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And we also believe in a nature-centric paradigm, not an anthropocentric paradigm. We believe that human beings are a part of the cosmos, where every other living, non-living thing has equal space and their, function that has been created for them. And finally, if you see, we also have the Buddhist philosophy. Lord Gautama, the Buddha, was the first dissenter, and we celebrate dissent. Buddhism is a religion of the middle path, and India has always believed in the middle path and non-attachment as major. And all of you know that Adi Shankaracharya, through Advaita, brought back these ideas into the Indian philosophy. And finally, I would say at one point, 2000 years ago, Tamil was the lingua franca of traders across Southeast Asia. They were not Indian colonies, but proto-states that took on the Hindu apparatus of religion and concepts of kingship to enhance their position and status. While communities of Indian traders settled in important ports along Southeast Asia, they never crossed the line into becoming colonizers. This is very important. This is our civilizational thing. We never colonized anybody. What happened instead was the local rulers imbibed the Indian traditions. So with these few words, I would like to finally end my speech saying that Indian cultural nationalism is on a path that is very different from that of the anthropocentric, or the Abrahamic religions. So whenever we talk of the Indian civilization, it is something that celebrates development, democracy, diversity, difference, and dissent. Thank you. Jai Hind. Namaskar.